Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Super Sentai Pilots. This is to be the part 2 installment of this. I had gone on in prior, done, for those of you American or Power Rangers equivalent of this whole idea of Power Rangers and Super Sentai. I am to go on and to have, in the past, cover the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Super Sentai equivalent, to cover the Power Rangers Samurai Sentai equivalent, and the exclusive Crystal Gem Machine Super Sentai pilot, which that is to go on and exist. I will put a playlist together stating of Super Sentai pilot episode reviews, so that'll be there. Within this second installment, I am to go on and talk about these very specific pilot episodes that are to go on and have certain Power Rangers equivalents, or also to be fairly exclusive, because they always like to go on and find one exclusive Super Sentai to want to talk about in between all these other ones that are to go on and of course be more familiar to you. So I'm to go on and state that I have found these certain episodes upon a certain website. So throughout most of this review, I will not only go on to state certain names, but then I will also spell them out quite frequently, because I know that I'm to go on and mispronounce something or have people be like, what did he say there? And then I will spell it out. So the website of which that I had gone on and found these certain websites on are to be called Toku 555. That's TOKU 555. If you put this into Google and say the word Super Sentai or Sentai, you will probably find this website fairly easy. So I will go on and state that it may take some time to find each one of these very specific pilots, but once you actually do get the very specific episode and you click play, there may be at certain points where it might jostle you into a ad that you have to get out of or back out of, or it may go on to another website and you may have to back out of that to get back into trying to hit the play button to start this episode. If there is another alternative for you to be able to go on and watch these said pilots, more than likely it may be available on Tubi, then by all means, check that out. TUBI, Tubi. But either way, I think it's about that time to say that let's go on and let's try and let's talk about these pilots and talk about how I felt about them. So, we go on, and I want to cover first the exclusive Sentai pilot, which is the Ressha Sentai Toqger. So that is to, of course, be spelled Ressha Sentai Toqger. It's right there, the logo, if you need any other kind of ways of which to try to go on and find this said thing. So Kyoryuger, to me, was so surprisingly, I'm like, man, I'm really liking this show. I like the idea and story most because, in all honesty, the focusing on finding a Red Ranger is like, okay, that seems to be like the staple of most of these pilots, and it kind of gets really annoying. For how I'm to go on, I'm like, okay, that doesn't really seem very creative, but also, like, if you aren't to be the biggest fan of a Red Ranger, and you like more of Sentai or the Power Rangers being much more of a team thing, then yeah, like, maybe the pilot isn't exactly to be desired, but regardless, like, we're just going on to these episodes and kind of doing what we're doing here for these Super Sentais. But anyways, beyond what I just said there, Kyoryuger, to me was like, wow. The whole idea of this season so far, I'm like, man, I want to see more of this show. I don't care how maybe bland or plain the suits are, or the Zord is, or the Megazord. I don't care. I was like, wow, this show is great. I liked it. We would go on to find that this world is to be dealing with imagination, as it has to go on to be shouted within this episode. So, imagination for the kids who are to go on and be imagining whatever they want to have a world of, whether they're shopping, being pirates, whatever is to be the flavor of their day. And then we would start to go on and find that there are seemingly more of like teenagers that still hold on to that imagination, and they will go on and be our Power Rangers for this day. We'll come to find that eventually one of them makes their way on to this train, and the Shadow Line, which would be the villains of the story, like, well, aren't you a little old to still be imagination? So, or be living in an imagination world. So, we would go into having this Red Ranger who still is to imagine things, and he then goes on to find like-minded people who are to all share this imagination belief, and they will have the Rainbow Line behind them that are wanting to have them all become Super Sentai or the Power Ranger team. So the Rainbow Line will go on to eventually help people understand what the morphing thing is, and how eventually they'll call upon the Megazords and stuff like that. And we'll eventually go on to kind of have this battle between the trains and stuff like that kind of just makes for some rather interesting play of things. We'll come to find out that the Shadow Line is taking a number of kids hostage upon this train, and the Rangers have to come in and rescue them, and then go on up against this Shadow Bag character. We'll come to find, for those of you that are to be Dino Fury, Cosmic Fury people, you will come to find a very familiar villainous character that is to be under a different name and is a completely different character. Madame Noir is to be, of course, Void Queen. So I was a little bit, wait a minute, taken aback by that. But I knew at some certain point I would come to find that certain characters were kind of to be interchangeable when it is to be Power Rangers and Sentai. As well as also when we get to the Dino Charge thing, I'm like, where is Sledge? I love me some delicious Sledge. And I'm just like, where is he? What's going on? Because man, is the Super Sentai of Dino Charge be really drastically different than Dino Charge is, and I honestly am to just get to that when we get to that. But anyways, getting back into this pilot episode. So, it's imagination against Shadow, in my opinion, even though we have Rainbow Line, but still. So, we have the Red Ranger who, even unmorphed, is to just be clocking this monster, to where all the rest of the Rangers who are to seemingly be in their certain Ranger costumes are like, hey, like, this guy seems to be some kind of impressive, and also, like, I'm getting a feeling that this guy is gonna end up being one of us because of how he's to just go on and be performing the way he is. And it also gets to the point to where they have to go on and tell this guy, hey, you need a morpher. You need to work as a team. Like, come on. So, when Red Ranger comes into working with the team, we all of a sudden forget that the colors no longer matter. Yeah, we'll have on their costumes, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the colors no longer matter anymore. That the Red Ranger will come in and say, hey, color special, like, I'm going to be the Blue Ranger, the Green Ranger, the Pink Ranger, I don't care, because logically it'll just change what weapon I use. And when eventually we'll get into the Megazord part, that's when kind of things start to reset, because the conductor is just like, hey, like, just don't willy-nilly and change your colors all the time. If anything, make the whole changing the colors thing seem to be important. But anyways, it is also kind of interesting how the Pink Ranger is to be saying stuff like Supergirl, or is to have this kind of build up in her mind that she needs to go on and like need to like psych herself up, because she is to just kind of be scared of things, or to not be sure if she has in her own mind the ability to do the things that she needs to do. But then her brain, she's like psyching herself up to like, yeah, I can do this, I can do this, and then she does it. And I was like, wow, that actually is pretty cool. I like that idea. And so much about this episode, I was to be like, god dang, there's some good stuff here. And certain things that I really did was like, just like, man, this is something wonderful. I really liked this pilot episode. Uh 5 stars on Yelp. Yeah, I really like this. It's so far, in my opinion, to be the standout Super Sentai thing that I really loved and enjoyed. So regardless of certain people's opinions upon this pilot episode specifically, because some people can go on and hate this thing and say that it visually ruins you, or some people would go on and be like, yeah, I agree, this one was the best ever. But also, I have not gone on to see every single Super Sentai pilot, so regardless, I may go on and have to say that this one is the best one I've seen yet, but I haven't seen all of them. So regardless, I may go on and like some stuff down the road and like their stories better, or like the visuals better, but for here on out, like, this is to kind of set the bar of like, okay, what else is to go on and just be like, wow, and ooh, and ah. But anyways, let's go on and let's talk about the Dino Charge equivalent of Zyuden Sentai Kyoryuger. I probably said that incorrectly. I apologize. I feel that the Kyoryuger thing, or Kyoryuger, I'm not quite sure of the stating of that, so I'm just kind of saying that right out of the gate here. So the spelling of this is as follows: Zyuden Sentai Kyoryu, or Kyuryuger. My apologies for missaying that. If anything, also for these things, look at the logos, because they're to be the spellings and what have you. So my apologies for incorrectly stating anything. Anyway, so we would come to find in this, I just keep wanting to say the Dino Charge Super Sentai, because it's easier. It's honestly easier. Also, I don't want to say this long stretch of a name every single goddamn time. So I'm going to say Dino Charge, and I hope people can understand my laziness. So we would come to find in this episode that they focus a lot on the Red Ranger, to the point where the rest of the team just kind of just comes in when it comes in. Like, whatever. Like, the rest of the team is to already seemingly be setting up and existing, while the Red Ranger has to go on and learn his revolver weapon, learn to work seemingly either against or to work with his Zord, and then figure out how he is to go on and charge his beast battery to go on to earn his morphing ability and face off against these minions and monster equivalent. That is to, of course, be Ice Age or D-Boss Ice Age within this very specific episode. I'm to go on and have much more of the names of the minions and stuff like that, but also Dino charged me as far as their specific names is kind of to be lost on me because it's been such a long time since honestly watching Dino Charge, and some stuff just didn't kind of just click in there. Like there's certain things of the certain episodes that can go on and click, but like certain stuff like minion names and stuff like that, certain season, I'm just I just don't remember what exactly their name is. So we would go on to within this episode focus on the Red Ranger who's called King. And so this character goes on and is assumed to be in, I think, some part of the world, because at the very beginning of this, they showcase that there is to be this battle going on all over the world. They show Europe, they show Japan, they show all these certain specific areas. And I would assume that each one of these Rangers are all probably coming from some part of the world. I don't know if that's true. If I'm wrong about that, then you can correct me in the comments below, because that's what I thought was going on. Because I didn't really clearly understand this specific world, and so you can correct me if I'm wrong about that assessment. If anything, in Dino Charge, it was a lot freaking easier, because we would go on to find all these people commingling into this one museum spot, and they would go on to find these energems, and they would go on to become Power Rangers. It's a lot easier, and also it focuses on all of the characters instead of just one singular one. So, in all honesty, I did not get a good assessment of this world, because really there was so much focus on one character that I'm like, I don't get what's really going on here. Why is the Red Ranger to be called King? I don't know why, but he is to be called King, and they focus on him so much so because I think he's to be king, he's important, whatever. But so here's the thing that I really heavily liked about this episode. Oddly enough, probably compared to my actual feeling of how I felt about this pilot. The one thing that I really did like is we have the team that is to go on and come together, and they say, hey, if anything for us, I don't think we should reveal our secret identities. We should go on and just kind of fight more in private, because I think it would be the best for all of us. And I honestly thought that that was a really interesting idea to play on to. That, if you think about it, yeah, like, it would probably put all these other people in jeopardy if they knew one another's secrets. But then also, they would have to fight unmorphed. So they would have to know who all of one another is. It would make more of like, hey, we need to have more importance on fighting the villain, instead of like if we have to disguise ourselves from one another or not. Plus, also, when you look at like the Defender show, and you look at Daredevil about how he was to go on and put a scarf over his head and then fight Justice's Day, I thought that that was honestly a little goofy. But I guess for Daredevil, it makes sense that he's trying to conceal his identity, but then also Jessica Jones is to know who he is. So yeah, there's just some problems there in my mind. So But if anything, getting back to this, so the Rangers are talking, or the Rangers, the Sentai team is to want to at first say like, well, hey, we should just fight in secrecy. And King comes in and he's just like, no, I'm going to demorph right in front of you all. I'm going to explain my name and my nickname. And none of you want to go on and call me that. That's fine. But this is who I am. I'm freaking, I'm Tony Stark Iron Man. Just deal with it. And so the team is to go on and be like, oh, okay, well, I guess he's just that guy then. And like, oh, well, like, he's going to reveal his identity. And, well, maybe we just have to scrap the whole secret identity thing altogether when it comes down to all of us. It is also really interesting how they don't have the Keeper in this episode, which is to go on and be a thing in Dino Charge, whereas we would go on to have Torin, who is to seemingly be their mentor in this episode and goes on to become a ranger himself, which that's eventually how Dino Charge has this character just kind of come in and he becomes a ranger at some certain point, because Dino Charge goes on and has like a certain assortment of rangers that honestly just eventually when they just come in, some of them don't quite make sense to me. Like we have one ranger that is to be this prince that is to just be like, well, hey, yeah, like I definitely like legit want to become a Power Ranger, but then as soon as he becomes a Power Ranger, he's like, yeah, guys, like I'm bouncing, like I'll come in when it's very convenient for me to go on and be able to do so, but you're not really gonna see me on the day to day. Like every once in a blue moon, I'll come in here and just kind of plop my thing down. But like, yeah, like I really was devoted to become this Power Ranger thing, but only when it's like severely convenient for me to be able to do so. But hey, guys, at least I became one, right? I took this whole entire time to do so. So yeah, so when it comes down to this pilot episode, now compared to Dino Charge, I honestly liked the Dino Charge pilot a lot better. I like the whole museum setup thing. There was just a lot of stuff that I liked about Dino Charge compared to this now, and I'm to just be like, yeah, like this is probably to just be a thing to see when eventually I am to have gone on and gotten through a lot of these other Sentai pilots that are much more interesting to me. Maybe it'll get better somewhere down the road, because it seems to a lot of people that this certain specific Sentai could go on and be fairly popular. I question that, because within this first pilot episode, I'm be like, okay, I'm not to get the gist of why it is, but regardless, I can see why. Maybe the visuals of this dino theme, I don't know. I'm drawing straws here, but maybe it gets better some down the road. Maybe it'll get better after 20 episodes. That's what a lot of people go on and tell me in certain things if I don't like things right away. Oh yeah, after you get 20 episodes in, that's when it gets better. I'm like, really? Like, I don't want to do that kind of commitment to something. And as well as also, like, yeah, it's just like, that seems like an unrational amount of investment. And how many episodes are there going to be in one season? Yeah, it's like, that's a kind of thing that really does baffle me about when people are to talk about certain things. But also, like, I had to make an investment in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and there's quite a bit of episodes where I'm just like, yeah, this is just kind of like a lot of filler or a lot of this or a lot of that. But like immediately when also looking at Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it's like one of those where I think a lot of people like it regardless of how the episodes be like. People are to go on and be committed into the enjoyment of Mighty Morphin regardless of uh, of how each singular episode is to be yayed or nayed by me. But anyways, let's shift into Dekarangers. So this is Tokusou. I'm completely butchering that name. Sentai Dekaranger. So this one I'll go on and I will state Dekaranger. But let me go on and let me spell this out. So Tokusou. The first word. Tokusou. Sentai Dekaranger. 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 I honestly like how in this SPD, the SPD is to actually be something different instead of Space Patrol Delta. Special Police Deca, I believe, is the Special Police Dekarangers. It is also to be kind of like weird on me that the phrase that the Rangers don't go on and say is SPD emergency. They say emergency Dekarangers. I'm like, that doesn't sound cool. It just doesn't. But also, with this episode, man, that Pink Ranger though. Oh. So, in this episode, we legit have the Pink Ranger who she's just in this tub and she's just washing off. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? This is to be like, all right, like we're seeing something drastically different in this show. And we're seeing this Pink Ranger and she's in this tub. And I'm like, I guess we would go on and have a number of people who are to be like romantically in their brains just so enticed by a female Power Ranger that seeing her in a tub bubbling up is like, all right, I guess we're to kind of get a bit of a thing here, and I'm probably spending way too much time on this, but like, it's so unique to see something like this. I was like, what? I was so thrown off by that. And also to spend like a pilot to just have somebody in a tub. Okay, all right. Like, we could probably tell a bit more important story here, but let's see a ranger in a tub. All right. Anyway, so we would come to find that in this specific episode, that the Red Ranger is to go on and be very much a character that is to kind of have his own rules or his own ways of going about doing things. He's kind of like a cop on the edge. He's to be a cop that is to, at some points, try to abide by the rules, but if anything, his rules are like, how can I delete this monster as quickly as I can instead of going on and having them be judged as guilty or innocent and investigating them and so on and so forth. Go through the rigmarole that it seems the rest of the Rangers team, as we start to see them, they go into much more of an investigation and trying to figure out what's going on. And if anything, here is my SPD equivalent of talking about these minions. So, within this episode, they mostly focus on the Crybots, and I'm like, seriously? Like, we're just focusing on the Crybots here. Like, there's no Emperor Grum that we see. Like, there's no Morgana or Moron. The little girl character, like, we're not seeing them whatsoever in this entire episode. It's just the Crybots. We don't really have... Well, we do have a monster in this episode, but it's not as held as an importance as the Crybots are, it seems. The Crybots take a lot more of time. We also get, like, the blue-headed Crybot, and these things also will not be exactly Crybots in the Super Sentai. They'll be, like, Aneroids or Bataroids or something along those natures. I'll have an actual list of these certain characters, so please understand that I'm just saying Crybots because that's how my brain works. So we would come to find that the rest of the Rangers are to be guided by Anubis Kruger, who is to look drastically different from his Sentai counterpart. As to me, like, I have no, in all honesty, like, allegiance to, like, well, hey, like uh, the Anubis Kruger of the American Power Rangers looks better, but I think that this Anubis Kruger can honestly is to be more of something to get used to compared to the other one, because I've seen so many episodes of that show so far, as well as also like that certain costume looks like a dog, but in much more alien in nature. Whereas this one, it just straight up looks a like a dog to me that is to be painted of a certain way. So when going into Dekarangers, we would come to find out that there is some plot here that I think if I wait too long will be completely lost by me if I'm to check more out of this show, because it seems in a certain pilot we would come to find that the monster is to have something within stomach inside of it that the main villain wants to get and only cares about. And it is to go on to be fairly interesting how these characters are go on into this investigation, but nothing is to be resolved in this episode. So if anything, like, if you watch beyond the pilot, I guess, like, the more of the investigation can unravel and we can start to figure out what's going on. But in this singular episode, like, so much is to be left on the hey, you need to watch more episodes to figure out, that I to feel that that is to be much more of a criticism than a positive, because I'm like, so you're saying that this specific pilot is to force you to, like, well, hey, if you want to know what's going on, you need to watch more, instead of giving us the whole thing in one episode, which that is to be the biggest gripe that I feel that I have about this. But regardless, also, like, beyond the Red Ranger's existence, and also how the Blue Ranger is telling a lot of his other Rangers, hey, like, don't give me orders, and don't tell me this and that, da, 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 da. Like, there also isn't much about these Rangers either, besides, like, the Red Ranger, and he's, like, hot-headed, and, like, he does whatever he wants, and he kind of is to have a number of people go on and fire him and push him on to the Deca Earth squad because they would like to expel him or just fire him completely. But if anything, the Earth needs him right now. And Kruger will go on and talk to his cat mechanic and say that Kruger is to go on and have this weird feeling that he needs a Red Ranger, and the mechanic is to go on and say, oh, so that's the reason why you called for a Red Ranger so recently, because of how you're just kind of feeling of that there's a real true crisis that is to need to be averted soon. And Kruger also goes on and talks about shadows here, and I'm like, wait a minute. Shadows? Like, I had just dealt with shadows in the other season. But so we don't end up getting yeah, so we don't end up getting Emperor Kruger here, or Emperor Grum here. Oh, also in the Dino Charge thing, we end up getting a lot of characters who are just to have certain personas to them. Like, Poisandra is to just be a completely other character that is to kind of to be said who they are, that they kind of deal with certain joy and certain this and that, and I thought that was rather interesting. But again, that's a really severely long explanation of a character who you could just slap a name on and just go about their day. Like that, I think is again another big criticism that I have with the Dino Charge Sentai equivalent is just like, man, you have this long stretch of this name for this, and like the names don't really have to matter. It could probably better explain who these characters are, but like, why do you have this long stretch of just like, oh yeah, this is the Lord of so and so, and he is to go on and be the Emperor of Fear, and blah, blah, and like, let's just say that he is to go on and be like Poisandra, and then just write him off and be like, okay, like, let's focus more on what the abilities that this character has, and what his plan is, instead of what his name is. That to me is to like the names of stuff is to get is quickly lost in the weeds, because I'm not a name person. I'm much more of a like, what could this character bring to the table? So with that said, let's push on into the full-on explanation and full-on me going on and thoroughly explaining these episodes, and me taking that time, even though regardless, I'm sure a lot of people will jump off at this. I just like to do this in the setup this way, this manner, and regardless of if people are to want to listen to all these things, like that's to alternatively be set up for anybody who wants to go on it and check out this whole thing. Also, I apologize from which I had gone on to last review the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episodes, because I had gone on to when talking about the Zords. It's been a very long time for me to have gone on and known about the Zord names. Like, I realized after the fact, because I didn't take due diligence of notes as far as the names of things when it came down to, because it's Mighty Morphin. Like, I would go on to just kind of figure that I would know most of the stuff by now, but once it got down to the Zords, like, I realized the Red Dragon Zord, or the Red Dragon Thunder Megazord, would go into warrior mode, and that the Pink Ranger Zord is Firebird. Like, to me, that just kind of got lost in my brain, because I always get that confused, because logically, I am to not be as familiar with those Zord's names. Like, what is the yellow one? I don't remember what the yellow one is either. It's not to go on and be because I don't care about those characters. It's just because the names of certain things just get missed upon me. Like, I am immediately knowing that Blue's Zord is a unicorn, Zack is to be the lion one, and the Red Ranger is to be the Red Dragon Zord, and then the Tiger Zord, of course, because Tiger Zord is to be on its own. But weirdly enough, the girl Zord's names are just to be lost by me. I don't know why, but it's true. So luckily, I've not gone on to yet have a single solitary person have any complaints about that, because I know that there's a lot of people that if I say anything incorrectly, they would go out of their way to try to correct me about something. And I'd also probably say that any number of people will probably correct me about anything that I have to go on and state here. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, anyone in the comment section could go on and have their own opinions, have their own like ways of understanding this world, and have seen all of every episode of every single one of these things, because that is to be their favorite, that is to be their whatever. And I'm to go on and have my own criticisms and my own thoughts about these things. So, if anything, the Train Sentai is to go on and be, in my opinion, the best it's ever so far. The Dekaranger pilot, I would say once we would get to the Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers Samurai episodes, because I really liked those. I feel that Dekaranger is going to end up right after them as far as my interest in them, as far as my interest in Dekaranger, because it was to be very, like, visually interesting. It has this cat wedding, and it has these even, I think, more interesting visuals than I feel the SPD show goes into of American counterpart. And feasibly is to go on and do actual, like, space patrolling. It goes into other planets. I'm like, why didn't we get this in SPD? Like, man, why did they go so cheap? Because it's Space Patrol Delta, but they don't really go into space that often. I'm not really seeing enough space travel here. What the is that? Uh, like, it seems that in space they travel in space and they go on to other planets. They go to KO-35s and all this other stuff. But when I'm going into SPD emergencies and space patrols and whatever, I'm to realize just how, like, yeah, they don't really go into other planets. There's a number of aliens that are all on their planet of Earth, but, like, they're not really going anywhere as far as alternate. Am I wrong about that? I had seen so many SPD episodes, and maybe they go into more into space in the later bits of something. But I'm just like, what does Space Patrol Delta really mean? It makes no sense. If anything, it makes more sense if they were called Special Police Delta Squad in SPD, the Power Rangers one, because yeah, like, the Space Patrol thing does make sense. Anyways, so honestly, then when we get to the Dino Charge equivalent, I feel that at least this episode is to be better than the Machine Gem Power Rangers or Super Sentai pilot, and that I can say for certainty that at least the Dino Charge thing is better at least than that. But if anything, I think all those are kind of held, I think, in a much more kind of lower than all of these other things that I've reviewed so far. So yeah, so I'm not quite sure how exactly people are going to take all this bit of information and probably have their own criticisms or also completely agree. But regardless, I'm to go on and say that I'm to whip out my cast list, Arsenal list, Zord list, freaking things all together. And luckily, most of these episodes don't actually really get into most of, like, the Megazord stuff. So I kind of was to kind of skim the cat of, like, what all I need to really know here. But anyways, let's go on and let's pause here. I'll get everything that I need to get out here and be able to go on and talk about these episodes much more so in depth and give my feelings upon them. So with that said, I'm going to pause here, whip that all out, and get this video hopefully uploaded today. Oh, I almost forgot also. My comparison to Dekarangers to Power Rangers SPD. What is the comparison? So, Power Rangers SPD goes on to have Sky. Sky goes on and is to kind of be a bit of an a-hole. He goes on to have a private conversation with Kruger where he goes on to mention that he doesn't like who he's working with because he doesn't like that a Power Ranger is a girl, which is to be, of course, the Pink Ranger. And then he goes on to also kind of berate also the Green Ranger also. And we'd of course have Kruger, who's just like, well, dude, you're not in a good shape to be the Red Ranger then. So yeah, no. We're gonna go on and find Jack, who it seems to be this Robin Hoodish like character who's to kind of be poor himself, or poor himself, but he steals so that way he can go on and give it to other people in need. And that is to viably have him go on and be a really good Red Ranger, as well as also to have him kind of second guess whether he should be the Red Ranger. And that, I think, to me is a lot more interesting and compelling story, even though the actual space patrol thing within this Dekaranger thing is really appealing, and also the adventures that they're getting into seems already to be vastly interesting, but also you get a Red Ranger that is to, when he's making his way to the barrier of Earth, to say, hey, applaud and clap, everybody, because I'm making my way into this planet like I'm the best thing to ever come to your Earth, and da 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 da. And to me, I'm like, what a complete just like, ugh. That is so just disgusting to me. But this guy is to think that he's like God's gift to freaking humanity. And like, I don't know whether or not that this guy is worse than Sky is. I just don't know. So it is to be rather interesting to see if I was to go on and watch further of this show, how things honestly are to go on and play out. Just like, okay, is this guy going to learn how to kind of play ball here, or maybe if there is going to be some Power Ranger adjustments that go on into the show, I'm not really sure. If anything, I did like the fact that in Power Rangers SPD, there is to be some adjustments to be made of who gets what color. And I did go on and find that to be rather enjoyable. For how we finally go on and realize that, again, the color isn't as important, because eventually someone will go on and get the rotation in and become the Red Ranger. Because we'll go on and see the Green Ranger and SPD eventually go on and become the Red Ranger eventually in Operation Overdrive. No going to explain why that happened. Anyways, so let's go into these episodes. So we of course are going into Goinger, the train Sentai. So the beginning of this has this narration. We have this train that passes by, and so these kids are all going on and they're playing this unusual game where they're drawing this line into the sand, and it's to be this imaginary cliff. And if anybody's to go on, I guess what the game is maybe they run up to as close to the cliff as they can, and if they are to step anywhere so much more further past this line, they'll fall into the cliff. And so we also go on in the background, have two girls that are kind of playing this restaurant or shop. I would say it's much more of a restaurant game that's kind of going on here. They're kind of playing house, for those of you that are trying to figure this out. So we also in this background have a number of kids that are all playing pirates, as we can kind of see this layout of this kind of pirate ship going on here. So the further we would see here is also that there's a girl that is to be on this kind of whale of a little riding thing, and we see that this girl is sitting next to this panda. The panda becomes huge. The girl is to go on and be on this whale. we have this kid who's to be playing with the soccer ball, and he's imagining that he's in the soccer arena, so on and so forth. Like, all this stuff is going to eventually go on and showcase its imaginary variation of it to go on and see what these kids are actually in their minds just seeing here, and it comes off to be just like, ooh, all right, like I can go on and just find this to be rather interesting. Then we would of course go on and see the shadow line to start to make its way into this world from this tunnel. And so we have one of the girls who I believe is Hera. She goes on and speaks to her mother, saying that she is to be hearing something weird. And the mother is like, well, I don't hear anything. Of course you don't, because the mother is to be an adult now. And we always start to go on, and we ourselves, as we get older, are to more and more realize that our imagination is to slowly but surely start to fade, or even our creativity is to start to fade. And it is to go on to be rather interesting how stuff like Quantum Leap would have the show where certain dogs or even kids can go on and see who Scott Bakula's character in that show really is, and also see Al because they're kids, and kind of imagination can go on and kind of be a thing that plays into that show. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about as far as Quantum Leap is concerned, then you're honestly missing out on a pretty interesting show. It also has been recently rebooted, but I go on and I say, like, check out the original version. Really do. Like, that show probably does go on and go into a lot more about race and stuff like that, but still, I liked the original over the remake. Anyways, so back with the episode. I apologizing for the vicious amount of tangents that I go into everything with, but I honestly will just be like, hey man, that's just what pops into my brain. And to not say something just feels like a thing that I'm just going to go on and be like regretting later. Anyway, so back with this girl who's talking to her mother, mentioning how she's hearing something weird. She's hearing the shadow line. So the shadow line starts to make it through its line through the world and starts to remove all the kids from their areas that they are playing and makes them all vanish. The mother of Hera goes on to cry out, Hera, where are you? As she has now disappeared, sucked into the shadow line. So we would have all these kids on the train and they're boo-hoo crying as we would have our villain of this episode, Bag Shadow, who is going like, yeah, go on and cry. Thank you for riding with us today. You're now riding the Spiriting Away line. Destination Forsaken Children's Mountain. So I'm kind of curious here. So is the shadow line to actually be shadow line, or is it to be like they say just shadow line just because it would just be an easier English equivalent of figuring out what the heck this is? Like, is it to actually be like spirit line or something of that nature, like a ghostly thing of some kind, and they just use the word shadow just because it's easier? My question I have to throw out there. But also, this to me, like, if we're actually feeling, or if we're actually going with the villains actually being a ghost of some kind, like that would be legit. Just like, oh man, that's always ever what I wanted on a Power Ranger show. But anyways, I digress here. Let's move on. So we have the Bag Shadow that is to go on and look through the kids, like, oh yeah, keep on crying. I love them crying. Like, you brats, keep on going. Yeah. So, as further and further, Shadowbag makes his way through all these people. he eventually goes on to stumble upon a person that seems a little bit too old for this train and is very confused about why he is to occur upon appearance of him being on this train. It doesn't quite make any sense. So we would come to find out that this is none other than Right Suzuki, who is to be the Red Ranger here. So Right, and if I'm ill pronouncing that at any time, correct me. I could go on and just state like, well, I'm just looking at the right of name of which it is to go on and be in front of me, as to assume this is to be how it's to be stated. But if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments below, because eventually I may not even go on and possibly watch this thing after today. I would love to say that I could watch more of it, but eventually I might just end up going right back into just watching more Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I may go on and choose other Sentai pilots in the future. So yeah, like it's sad that I will not go on specifically to this one and watch the whole series, because it is really fascinating to me. So Right as we going on and sleeping within this car here, and so as Shadow Bag or Bag Shadow wakes up this eventual future ranger here and says like, "Hey, get up, time to eat." And then the ranger is to be just biting on this guy's arm. It's like, "Hey, I'm not lunch." So now we get the rainbow line. It comes in red, blue, green, pink. They're all on their own separate lines, making their way to get to, of course, this shadow train. So here's, I believe, where we start to get into like the intro here, and I'm gonna kind of skip past a little bit here. So the rainbow line ends up going on to meet with the shadow line, and they're kind of in this jux of trying to derail one another. And what ends up happening is the shadow line, it ends up going flying off and derails and starts to fire off its blasters off to the side of its train car, and figures out a way to continue on its tracks. As oddly enough, like these train tracks seem to be never ending, as also the train tracks start to go up onto the sky, which is like, wait a minute, what? We have train tracks into the sky that we're playing on with? All right, like, again, this is to all be imaginary and also to just be like, hey, whatever you guys want to do in this show, like CGIs and what have you, like pretty interesting here. So we have Bag Shadow that start to get upset with the rainbow line about how it's kind of thwarting his travel endeavors, and be like, blast them, I'm not through yet. So we have Bag Shadow that makes his way outside to kind of check on things, and we would have Right, who follows him and falls on top of him, and then the two of them seemingly get into this like kind of struggle or kerfuffle here. And we have Bag Shadow that tells Right, hey, you need to back off. So we would go on to further here, as I need a bit of time here. The rail line opens, a number of rangers here starts to pop out of them, and it's kind of funny. We had the Blue Ranger who like trips and falls and like, whoa, and he eats it. Like, yeah, yeah, Blue Ranger, eat it. So, well, yeah, like these Rangers are fairly new at this. It's also kind of funny how they eat it. But anyway, so the Rangers make it out of their car, and so they make their way to seemingly having a face-off between both Backshadow and themselves. And so the Red Ranger turns to the rest of the team. It's like, well, hey, like you must be the Sentais, the Toqger, and we would of course have the Rangers here that turn to him. And it's like, well, yeah, that's right, that's correct. So the Rangers are turning to right here, and they're telling him like, well, hey, like if you don't mind, like we we have more important matters here than just chatting up with you. So also here, like I am kind of curious about the level of things that people can go on and actually see here. Because considering this is all to be dealt in imagination, so, like, are the Rangers actually Rangers in their world, or is this all again just imaginary? Is the villain to go on and be also just imaginary? So I'm like, what level of like reality are we dealing with here? Is what I really want to go on and ask for anybody who is to have watched this, anybody is to like kind of have a theory or what. I'm just so curious about like level of understanding of the show. So I can just go on and just be like, okay, like so the Rangers do exist here, the villains exist, but maybe the train stuff is actually just to be pretend. And like that would probably go on and make the most sense. But how is it that the Rangers and the villain just appear the way they do in these certain areas if they're to be more I'm trying to figure it all out. I really am. Anyways, so back in the story here, I apologize for me hugely tangenting off here. But again, it's just my thought process of just trying to figure out what's going on. So let me know in the comments below what you feel. So we go on into having Bag Shadow release his minions called the Crows here. So I had gone on through a YouTube thing and seen people who were to go on and try to do the Power Rangers thing where they would take clips from the Sentai and they would reuse it and do their thing of their American equivalent of whatever. And I think at some point that YouTube thing only lasted a certain amount of time because they would go on to state to people that, like, well, hey, we're dealing with a lot of copyrights because, of course, this is not original bits of content. And so maybe that kind of did that channel in at some point. I don't know. I didn't go further into. I saw one episode of it, and then past that, I was just to go on and be like, okay, like this is to need me to probably want to go on and check out the Sentai equivalent of things because I mostly just kind of saw them fighting things, but I don't think I got the gist of what the actual story of what was going on was of the show. So, if anything, let's get back into this. So, we would start down the Rangers. They all go on to get out their blasters. And the blasters for these episodes, they are to go on and have a very certain specific name here, which is to go on and actually be the revolving gun sword Toku blaster, I believe is what that is called. Could be wrong about that. Toqger Blaster. It also seems to have a gun and sword mode. Toqger Blaster. So that's what that thing is. So the Toqger Blaster is to seem to go on and have this blade that comes out of it, and it's to start to go through these crows, and that I was to go on and find to be really interesting about this bit of fight here. The Pink Ranger, here's where she goes on and she does the Supergirl thing, because she's like, I'm strong, I'm not afraid, I'm not scared. So I'm loving this Pink Ranger. Best Pink Ranger I've ever seen in a Super Sentai, but maybe even also, I'm to really get behind this Pink Ranger. Like, man, if we could go on and have other just Power Ranger characters that are similar to this, I would be so behind this. But again, it's been a while since I've seen Power Rangers in general, and also just I don't think I've seen every single Power Ranger thing that has existed. But regardless, Pink Ranger #1. Anyways, so the Pink Ranger is going on looking at the crows surrounding her, and she's like, oh my god, I need to be strong. I'm scared, but I need to be strong. So she does like the Superman flying up thing and knocks out all these crows, starts to fling them all around. We have the Blue Ranger. He does these like duck and rolls and like these dives and dips and whatever, and he's like rolling all over the goddamn place, and he has this blaster and he's blasting all these crows, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, like I'm trying to get behind this, like, all right, like let's see this play out here. So we have the Yellow Ranger, and she's going on and she's attacking some crows. So we have the Red Ranger, who's like, well, like, I guess, like, if we go on and like, the Red Ranger has no idea what's going on, but he's like, well, hey, if we take out this one Bag Shadow guy, like, that's like the key thing here, right? Like, we need to go after the monster dude. Like, he should be the focus. So the Red Ranger, right, he starts running to get to the monster. And we start to see all the other Rangers, and they're looking at him and like, what is he doing? And it's like, no, it's too dangerous. Don't do it. Like, if anything, you're not Morph yet. You don't really know what's going on. So we have Right, and he goes on, and he just takes out a number of these crows, and then continues on to the monster, and the rest of the team is like, wait a minute, what? Like, this guy is just, like, amazing. All right, well, high five. Like, let's take a coffee break. No, that's not exactly what they say, but it's kind of to that equivalent, because all of them are kind of just stopped dead in their tracks, and they're just watching this guy just, like, fight these characters, and they're not really doing anything, which I'm like, dude, help him out. Have this fight end quicker. Team, come on, work together. So the Yellow is going on and telling the rest of the team, like, do you think this guy is like is gonna end up being one of us? Like, so Right goes on and he starts facing off against Bag Shadow, and Bag Shadow tells him, like, well, hey, I tell you, like, knock that off. So Bag Shadow goes on and knocks Right, and he goes flying. He goes into these boxes and these crates, and all of a sudden, Right ends up having this flashback, which eventually will shown a little bit more later what the heck this means. So Right will go on and be a part of this bit of group that he is to have this secret tree that they all go to, that they're gonna call their base. And Right, I guess, was to try and climb this tree, but he ends up falling off of it, and that's when eventually he kind of kicks back into like the normal world, or the imaginary train world. So Right goes on and he wakes up and all the rest of the Rangers are around him. So they realize that he's awake. They ask him if he's okay. And so Wright is asking the rest of the Rangers, like, wait, are we on a train now? And so Karu, I believe, is the Blue Ranger here. And Karu goes on, or Haru, my apologies. Haru goes on to explain, yeah, like, you are going on and being on this train, and let me get to the right bit of thing here. Like, yeah, you're on this train because if anything, we're focusing on getting to defeat that monster. That's kind of what we're focusing on here. And so Wright is kind of looking all around and seeing like these certain number of people, and he's kind of surmising. So like, you guys, the Rangers that I just saw a little bit ago, and the yellow one kind of turns him. It's like basically, and so he's like, I knew it. So Wright goes on and he sees yet another person and asks if he's a ranger, and it's kind of funny because his character is to actually be the conductor with the puppet known as Ticket. And so we would go on to be like, incorrect, you are stupid. So Ticket goes on, or the conductor and the Ticket go on, and they start talking here. And so the conductor goes on and explains who he is, and it's a pleasure to meet him, and goes on to explain Ticket, and we have Wright who's just like, well, like, that's just a puppet, right? And so we'd have the conductors like, well, honestly, you're mistaken. So the conductor goes on and he's like, well, hey, I'll explain to you like how this kind of relationship between the two of us is to work. So the conductor goes on and he is to start to sing this song, and then he is to walk away, and Ticket is to start to sing the rest of it. So it obviously looks like that the conductor's mouth is not moving whatsoever, and this is like the best kind of form of ventriloquism that we've kind of seen in a while. And so Wright is trying to figure out the whole conductor thing. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, this conductor guy, yeah, it's a puppet. Like, so how does that work? So, and the Blue Ranger, Haru, kind of turns to Wright and is like, well, dude, I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know. So Wright goes on to start to realize that all these people that are around him are actually to go on and be very familiar to him. And so he also is to go on and start to know who these people are, who their names are, and so on and so forth. So we'll come to find back at that flashback that Wright is to further explain. So all these people that are around him had been in this secret hideout before, and they had all kind of been with him in the past. So now that they are all much older, they still, I guess, believe in imagination. And conveniently, Wright's old friends are to now to go on and to go on and all be introduced here, and all are to have their names be said here. And so the Blue Ranger goes on and tells Wright here, it's like, well, hey, Haru goes on to say that, like, well, the conductor had told us that there was a possibility that there was going to go on and be more Rangers, but like immediately when I saw you, there were some suspicions of like, man, this guy seems like he's gonna go on and possibly be one of us, but I wasn't sure. So we would have Right that starts to go on and ask like, well, hey, why is it that all you guys are here? So the team goes on and they start to answer. It's like, well, we don't really know, but then again, also, like once we started to get asked to be like Rangers, we're all just like, heck yeah, and also that we get to be able to fight monsters and to face off against the Shadow Line. And so here's where the conductor comes back in, and he starts talking about like, yeah, there are creatures that exist in the shadow world, and there needs to be some kind of defense of some kind because their goal is to let darkness uh, endow the world, like monsters like Shadow or Bag Shadow here. So here's where we have a character that is Madame Noir that immediately in my brain I'm like, Void Queen, Void Queen. I'm sorry, but that's what just pops in there. So Madame Noir goes on and talks to Bag Shadow, and as the two of them talk, they're they're just kind of Noir is asking Bag Shadow about his progress, about how things are going, and Bag Shadow is going to say it's like, well, hey, he has a number of kids here, and he's all ready to expand the Shadow Line. So after that, after Noir is kind of done talking to Bag Shadow, we then turn to come to find that there are kind of more people that are coming into play here. We would go on to see. Let me pause here for a second. We would go on to see Miss Greta. That it looks like this character to be very much more of a looks like a baby and kind of sounds like it, and it seems that Noir is going to comfort this child, and then we get uh, Baron and he comes in, and once these people start to make their way in here, I think this character is Baron Nero here. As soon as they kind of make their entrance here, we start to have them go on and they say who the characters are at some points. So we're talking here about the expansion of the Shadow Line, and Nero kind of takes upon his own to talk about the importance of that. And then we bring in General Schwartz here, and man, this character has some interesting visuals. Not to say negative, positive. Like it's kind of really interesting. Like the detail that goes into this character with the hat and the almost like kind of very much almost skull like look to him. It's kind of just really interesting here. I definitely want to see more of this general character because I'm like, all right, like just a lot of just interesting here. So the general comes in and starts to talk about the Rangers. So we're back with the rainbow line here. So the conductor goes on to state, yeah, like we're here to just oppose the shadow line, and that's why all you Rangers are to kind of be here. So Wright goes on to state to the conductor, it's like, well, like that's why I'm here, right? And it's like, well, yeah, sure, that's why you're here. That's why everyone has been chosen. And the real reason why you guys have been chosen is because imagination, as he shouts it out. So all of a sudden, the Rainbow Line train starts to go dark, and the conductor is to realize that the Shadow Line has made its way into having them realize that there's a crisis going on here that they, of course, need to avert. So, right as they go on, and immediately, without like, hey, where's my morpher? Where's my communicator? Anything. Like, this guy goes on and sees that there is a Shadow Line train next to him. He opens up this door and goes flying onto the other Shadow Line train and goes pop right onto the train as the rest Rangers are looking on and they're just like, huh? Like this guy just went off just half cocked and just like freaking went for it. So Ryan starts to make his way into the Shadow Line train, starting to ask the kids if they're all right. They're not all right. They're all freaking crying and bullshit. Like, come on, kid. Like, get it together. Like, they're not gonna be all right. They're in the Shadow Line train. So we have Wright that goes on and says, "Hey guys, like it's gonna be okay. I'm here to help." And Bag Shadow comes in, and he's like, "Oh, you came alone? You're stupid." How many times is Wright gonna be called stupid in this one episode? And so Wright is to go on and say here that he's like, "Well, hey, things are gonna be different this time because now I am a Kyoryuger." So, and it's kind of funny because like all of a sudden he kind of turns to the camera. It's like, "But how do I become one? How do I morph? Camera, help me." So we have the conductor that's like, yeah, like that guy is certainly impatient. So let's go on and let's get this bag open and give the Rangers his morpher and just have them willy nilly just jump to the other train and have the rest of the Rangers help him out because this guy is new to all this. So Shadowbag is facing off with of course right here as the rest of the Rangers jump onto the Shadow Line train. So the Rangers are going to come to find that Wright has a certain factor about him, an X factor of certain sorts, because him compared to all the others, his belief or imagination is to seemingly be so much more stronger than any of the others. That's why he's eventually to be, I guess, be dubbed the leader of this group. But if anything, when the rest of the team makes it to Wright, eventually Wright is to tell the rest of the Rangers, it's like, well, like, even without a morpher, even without any kind of weapon of any kind, Wright believes that imagination, if he believes that he can beat this monster, it's going to happen. And that goes on and makes him deadly here. That makes him to go on and know that he's going to win because of his belief that he can do it. So Wright goes on and is to all of a sudden, even without his morpher, have the world around him start to become very much a drawing of sorts. So Wright goes on and punches and impacts this monster to really just have us as the people realize that this ranger is defying possible, that anything could really be a thing that could happen here. And it is quite interesting to see that a ranger out of morph is to take down a monster the way he is, but also that doesn't exactly help us somewhere down the road of just like, okay, if this guy can be unmorphed and take down a monster, then what does he need to be morphed for? But anyways, we would come to find that Wright is going to go on and knock out Shadowbag from out of this train, and he'll go flying. And then we bring in the crows in, and then the Rangers hand Wright his morpher, and so they morph shortly thereafter that. It is also really interesting that when they morph, that all of a sudden there has to be this barrier for the crows and the monster to not cross, which I thought was really interesting. So it's like, so that goes on and helps us understand when the Rangers go on and they morph, how the monsters don't try to prevent them from doing this whole process because they can't, because they have this barrier of sorts. So I actually like that idea because so many people would go on and have the problem or the criticism of like, well, hey, how is it that these characters can go on and be morph without anybody stopping them because there's a barrier, because there's a thing that's occurring there that could just defeat the whole like criticism of like, hey, these things could be morphing on that's I think the one thing that is so smart about Sentai stuff compared to the American Power Ranger things. I would go on and have so many logic gaps about the Power Ranger stuff, and when looking at the Super Sentai things, I'm like, oh my god, like they have kind of much more logically perfected a lot of this stuff. And why is it that the Power Ranger seasons did not take from a lot more of this Super Sentai stuff as far as like the writing is at some certain points to be done to just be like, oh, that finally gives us a logic of why uh, Power Rangers can morph and the monsters don't come at them. Or there are sometimes where the morphers are to be taken away from certain people, like Golar took away from Jason. Anyways, we get the Rangers, they all morph, and they all end up having their certain numbers. So we have the Rangers going on and taking on the monsters here, and that's where we start to get the weapons kind of put into to fray here. We have the Blue Ranger. He goes on to use uh, his platform trigger here weapon, and it's to be somewhat of a like a blaster thing that ends up kind of having this kind of netting kind of wall of a thing that kind of hits these monsters. We'd have the Yellow Ranger that goes on and uses her signal hammer, and so it's like this big massive hammer that she goes on and she smashes down on the ground, and then there's these lights that go on from the bottom of it, so it kind of goes red or blue or green or whatever, and it goes back and forth. And I was like, that actually is a really interesting idea. We have also the tunnel axe, and man, the Green Ranger is taking this tunnel axe, and he's like taking these monsters, and he's like, it's like honestly, like this tunnel axe to me almost looks like a shovel weapon for how he's like scooping them up and then like flinging them in so many other places. It's really rather interesting to see. And then we have one of the villains like, I can't fly. So the Pink Ranger ends up using this bridge claw, this like claw of a weapon. And I'm like, okay, claw weapon. I'm like, scratch. Ooh, yeah, this is not going to be all that interesting. But it actually becomes interesting. So at one point, the crows go on and knock this girl down. And once the crows start to go on and I guess want to like drop on top of her, we all of a sudden have her her bridge claw that expands, and all of the minions start to fall into this little gap of bridge claw, and we would find that they would reappear as these small little figures of a thing. And so we would have the Pink Ranger that just starts to poke them with her weapon and just takes them out that way. So we now have the Red Ranger and his rail slasher. So he takes this rail slasher thing and takes a huge group of crows, and the weapon goes on and kind of surrounds them, kind of like rope, and grabs them together and smushes them so to where they eventually all get destroyed here. So like the rail slasher goes on and kind of collectively like smushes them together and takes them out that way. So here is where we go on to have the Red Ranger who wants to swap morphers or changers with the Blue Ranger, and so they change colors. So the Red Ranger is telling the Blue Ranger, "Hey, I want your color. I want to be blue." And the Blue is like, "What?" Like so. The Red Ranger takes the train from the Blue Ranger and takes it, and then the Blue Ranger is kind of concerned because, like, wait a minute, like this is a thing that is telling me that, like, I'm gonna lose my transformation soon. What the heck is going on? And so the Red Ranger is like, come on, you're fine. So they switch colors, and they're just like, wow, like I can't believe this is working. So they switch colors, and they just continue to fight here. And so here is when all of a sudden the Green and the Pink Ranger realize, hey, if he could do it, why can't we do it? So the Pink and the Green Ranger, they change colors, and they keep their same numbers, but again, they change colors. So we get to see a female Green Ranger and a male Pink Ranger. So we see this in Super Sentai, a male Pink Ranger. It's freaking great. So it's kind of funny how like the girl the the girl Green Ranger is to have the tunnel axe and she can't pick it up. She's like, this is really heavy. So she's to go on, and again, because she's a person that just needs a pep talk here, she goes on of like, okay, I need to be strong, I need to be strong here. And we see that her like her spiritual self within her mind is to still be Pink here. And she's doing this like weird squat of a thing, and I'm like, okay, like she's doing this front squat, and I'm like, okay, like why are you doing a front squat? Front squat sucks. But whatever. So the female Pink Ranger goes on and says "Muscle Girl," and she blasts away a good chunk of villainous characters here as the male Pink Ranger is going on and he's having his claw and he's going through all these characters and taking them down. So we have the blue 4 and the pink 1. They change here. And so the Red Ranger turned into the Blue Ranger, and now the Green Ranger, who is now, or Pink, we're getting lost in the weeds here. The Red Ranger is wanting to be Pink, and so the Green Ranger is now the Blue Ranger. And so if anybody can kind of connect the dots and figure out what the heck is going on here, then let me know in the comments below. So it also is rather interesting how we also have now the one Pink Ranger, the male Pink Ranger, also wanting to go on and change with the Yellow Ranger. So that happens as well. So by the time that we have all these characters and they're continuing to fight here, and all these numbers are to be interchanged at this point, we have Bag Shadow who is so freaking confused about who is who and what is what. As even the Red Ranger is now green. So we would finally get to the point where the conductor is to call the Green Ranger who is now, or the Red Ranger who is now Green Ranger, and is to call him through his rainbow pass and to tell him, hey, you guys are transforming way too much. Like, if anything, like, you guys need to reset because you're going to be calling your morphers soon. But then also, like, you guys can't, like, switch this often. It's getting very confusing. So they finally reset, and the red, blue, yellow, pink, and green ranger are to be defaulting who they were originally. And so, are you guys at all confused yet? Are you ready for this? Anyways, so we would go on to have the conductor who is calling for the Rangers to get their coupling bazooka, their bazooka weapon. Basically, this is the time where they are to go on and combine all their weapons together to make one cannon-like weapon. And this is to be the Rensetsu Bazooka. Rensetsu Bazooka. But for me, they ended up calling it a coupling bazooka, so that's what I was kind of going with when I was to say this here. So they combine their weapons, they do the blast, and then all of a sudden we have Back Shadow, who all of a sudden has all of what looks like tombstones that are appearing on top of him, and they're like, there's a load of them. And so eventually, like, this becomes too great to where it like falls on top of this guy. Like, it's either statues or it's like it's either concrete statues or it's like tombstones. I'm gonna go with statues because that makes more sense in my brain. All these statues are falling on Back Shadow, and Back Shadow doesn't exactly understand what's going on, and neither does the Pink Ranger. And so this is just random bullshit that they're just doing for the show, and they're doing like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the camera to like, yeah, we don't know what's going on. We're just doing this random bullshit because we've done so many seasons of the show already. So the Red Ranger goes on, and he kind of like has this bazooka kind of sitting on his shoulder here, and so here's where we go on. We have the villain who becomes bigger, massive, whatever. We don't have like a growing grenade. We don't do the wand make my monster grow thing. Like, no, like we just have the monster who just all of a sudden absurdly just becomes big, and it's not explained why. It just happens this day. So we have the conductor who is calling for the Red Ranger to summon the express train for them to go on and make the Megazord. And the Megazord is to have its own very specific name, which is to go on and be Tokusou, which is the DX, which is the Mecha, which is the Megazord. So I'm gonna go on and probably say Megazord. At least I'd said the freaking name of this thing. I think when we even get to the Dino Charge and Dekaranger stuff, I'm probably gonna still say Megazord. And because I don't remember the Megazord's names of either SPD or Dino Charge, but I don't think either of those happens in those episodes, so I'm kind of scot-free out of that anyways. But a default thing that I might just say the word Zord instead of what the actual thing of the name is for any of these things. Anyways, moving on. So they call for the express train, and the Red Ranger just starts walking randomly, and then he realizes that there's a barrier set up because you have to exactly go on and use your rainbow pass to kind of get through this certain this certain gate to then get into the train. And I thought that that was actually kind of just fun and just kind of playing more into the imagination thing, that you have to go through this certain extent to be able to get into your Megazord. So they all use their rainbow pass, and so the conductor goes on and says, hey, I will temporarily give you all passes so that you guys can go on it and do your Megazord thing. And so the Rangers go on and they start to get into their Zords, and then they end up doing the express coupling, and they link together. They make the Megazord. This Megazord sequence goes on for far too freaking long. And a lot of people could probably say the same about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when they go on, they do the dinosaur coupling thing. That takes a really long freaking time, also. But the way this thing was showcased, I'm like, man, we're going to like, this is a long stretch of time here, but also I'm spending almost way too long of a time talking about this episode, also. So the Megazord goes on and faces off against Bag Shadow. Bag Shadow is consistently saying, cry, cry, cry. So they're fighting, they're facing, they're doing this whole thing. So we would come to find out that this Megazord sword is to be called the Vermerikirken. Vermerikirken. Sounds like I'm saying something that's either Scottish or Irish or something. Fumakirken? The sword. I only say that because the sword actually does look interesting to me compared to like the rest of the get up here, because the rest of the Megazord just looks very plain to me. Even though also I had gone on to see MMPR toys, like he would go on to like showcase this Megazord specifically, and I had watched quite a bit of his stuff talking about this show, and that probably got me enticed to want to check this out. But also, it's kind of like, yeah, this season looks very drastically different than anything else. And then also, like, this is a more exclusive train thing that I want to check out. So I'm just kind of like, let's see this. So they would go on and they would have certain rangers call out certain attacks. One ranger would call out for a punch, one would call out for a kick. So it's not that the Red Ranger is saying everything here. And then he would call and then we would get the Red Ranger, and he would call for the specific sword attack. So this is to be crossing swords or crossing sword. So all of a sudden we would come to find that there's these two swords that are just kind of coming down simultaneously, but like it seems that there's only one sword, but there's like two of them that come crossing down. And this is to say that they're going to go on and they're going to use their Slice Ultra Sword attack that is to wipe out the Bag Shadow here and take him down here. And so everybody's like, yeah, we did it, all right. So this is to, of course, lead us to realize that this is to be almost the wrapping up of this specific episode. So after they go on and they defeat the monster here, and some of the Rangers are kind of going on to other certain people's Rangers, and they kind of high five and they're having a good old time. So the next thing we see here is the Rangers unmorphed and they're talking to the conductor. And so it seems that there is a bit of miss of what like they were saying ahead of time here, but anyways, we're kind of interrupting a conversation that has already been had this day. So the Rangers are talking to the conductor, and they're asking, could you say again what you just told us? And so come to find out the rationale that there could be an alternative reason why these Rangers are to have been chosen to be Rangers is because seemingly there's a possibility that the Rangers are as good as dead. And the Red Ranger says, dead? Like, what exactly does that mean? And then they stop the episode and they say, hey, next time on on Toqger. And then they go on and they explain what the next following episode is. Like, wait a minute, what? Don't cliffhanger me, baby! So yeah, so we get that cliffhanger of just like, what did they mean by dead? Like, are they to go on and the reason why they're to live in this imaginary world is simply because they are to be dead already? Like, that's the reason why they were chosen? A little bit like, what's going on here? So now we're going into the what I would call the Dino Charge equivalent of the Kyoryuger. Yeah, that one, the Dino Charge one. So we would kind of find that in this world uh, that there had been a mighty bit of creatures that had ruled the earth, and they were to all be dinosaurs. Uh, but they had went extinct, vanished from stages of history, and now the extinction threatens the human race. So we would go on to find, instead of Sledge, we'll go on to find instead Many Faces High Priest Chaos, who is Lord Arcanon. He is to seemingly be the bad guy of this episode, it seems so far. And that is weird to me because in Dino Charge, I think I remember seeing him come in way later, and Sledge would be the bad guy, so it's kind of weird to see this change. Also, I'm very much used to the bad guys being at a certain headquarters of a ship, whereas in this episode, they're just in this like lavish place of sorts that I have no idea what it actually is. So let me know in the comments below what this place actually is. So Lord Kanan here is going on and setting up that there is going to be some Zorima that are to go on and start making their way through Earth and starting to wreak some havoc here. And Zorimas are to be Vivixes from Dino Charge. For those of you that don't, those of you that do know Dino Charge but don't know this show. So, and eventually, Vivixes will become giant Vivixes and giant Zorimas for this episode. So, Zorimas go on and start to attack Europe, the North Pole, Japan, America, uh, an island on the South Seas, and so on and so forth. And so Chaos, or Lord Arcanon, for those of you that are Dino Charge people, he goes on to say that the frozen castle has awakened and renewed itself, and after millions of years, he's free. The D-Boss Legion shall live again. And so that's where the Zoromas, they start to appear, and they start attacking all of the world. So now in an island in the South Seas, we would come to find King, who is attacking these Zoromas, and he's telling some refugees, some people behind him, some folks, he's like, hey, get out of here while I go on and I fight these Zoromas. I'm gonna go on and take them down because I'm the freaking king. So King starts facing off against these Zoromas, and then so we would then go on to have Torin that appears. I believe it's Torin or Torin. I don't know. If anything, we get the weird, goofy guy that's not the keeper in the show. The guy that is to be all red and blue. He has wings, like this guy right here, this goober guy of a like. I honestly didn't watch Dino Charge to the point of this guy to have appeared. So to me, I think have seen an episode of this character to have existed, but also I'm to just go on and be like, what the is that? Not for the Sentai thing. When I saw him in Dino Charge, I'm like, why is this character a guy or an alien thing? Like, what is up with that? But it seems that in the Sentai thing, he's to be their mentor for this episode, which is kind of like, wait a minute, what? But also, I'd had seen Brendan Mejia talk about this certain specific pilot, and if you want to go on and check out his specific opinion upon this, check that out. Because logically, he's to go on and break up the comparisons and everything way better than I can, because he knows every bit about the show and its Sentai counterpart and everything. So he knows it a lot better than I do. So if anything, his is going to be a lot better than my. But his was, I think, also because of probably copyrights, very choppy as well. But like that makes a lot of sense because yeah, just try to avoid copyrights as best as you can. Anyways, moving on here. So we have Torin that comes in and he chucks King his weapon, which is to go on and be the Garu Valver. I want to say the transformation gun because that's going to be a lot easier than Garu Valver. But so there's also, oddly enough, another thing that says Garu Cannon. What's the difference? It's the same thing. Also, if you were to go on and see the toys of Dino Charge and this show, you would realize that the Japanese version is honestly way better. It actually does have the gun trigger, and it does look a lot bigger compared to the Dino Charge version, which doesn't have a trigger, and it's not as good looking. Let's be honest. So, if you are a fan of Dino Charge or Sentai equivalent, then by all means, I would much rather say, hey, if you can find the Japanese variation of said changing gun, then find that. Because if anything, it just looks more screen used than eventually going on and finding. Well, the other the Dino Charge one is probably very much cheaper. Let's admit that. So if you just want to find a cheap gun, then go with the Dino Charge one. But if you want to get a more screen accurate one, then you're gonna go with the Japanese one. Sadly enough. Anyways, pushing on here. So a little bit of my tidbit knowledge because I'd watched again Brandon Mejia, who he would go on and talk about the toy comparison, and again I'm just kind of parroting what he's saying quite often. Moving on, so we have Torin. He tosses the revolver to King here, and he starts blasting the Zorimas. Sounds really weird. Why can't I just say Vivexes? Vivexes just sound easier. It's so tempting. Anyways, King blasts these Zorimas away, and then all of a sudden his Zord, the Red Ranger's Zord, he doesn't become Red Ranger yet. It doesn't happen. We have to build up to it. The Zord comes in, and the Zord is not to be called, oh yeah, just T-Rex Zord, easy to. No. No, why would that be a thing? No, the Zord is to go on and to be called Gabutaru. Gabutara? Bitara? Garbuti harara. I said it somewhere in there, right? Kabutara. Talima. Sounding like a Indiana Jones. Taru Talima. Like I'm gonna grab somebody's heart out of their chest. So, but I'm gonna probably call it T-Rex Zord because it's freaking probably easier. Because it's tempting to just say that. So the T-Rex comes in and he levels the place. He takes out a lot of the Zarimas, and we have King who's looking on. He's like, I just saw a dinosaur. And then he like looks at his medallion and he's like, I just saw one, Dad. Because again, we have to play into the fact that this Red Ranger has a missing father. And it seems that we also will have Brendan Mahira, his character, who's in Dino Charge, who will be suffering from the same thing of a missing dada. Just wait till he goes on and he meets his dada, and they throw a ball back and forth, and God dang it, do I need to keep going back into that? I'm sorry, Brandon. It happens. Mistakes happen. Anyways, so moving on with our lives. So King goes on, and he is to, of course, blast his revolver. And the T-Rex Zord goes on and is to seemingly blast from his nostrils some smoke, knocking King back. And so King is to assume it's like, wait a minute, like, is this Zord thing, is it working against me, or is bad guy? What's going on? I'm so confused. So Taro is to go on and say, it's like, well, it seems that this T-Rex Zord is to be taking a liking to you. And his name is Garbutara. God dang it. My apologies for you Japanese people who are about like, dude, it's Gabla. It's so easy. Why can't you just say it? Like, what the fuck? It's not that easy. It really isn't. It's T-Rex Dino Zord to me in my brain. It's T-Rex Zord. It's so freaking easy to just say all that. Nagabu da. I'm sorry. I'm freaking racially insensitive. My bad. My apologies. But if anything, and then Torn goes on to explain who he is. Who he's a Paragon Supreme. Doctor Strange. That's what just pops into there. Is like, he's Sorcerer Supreme? Taku Supreme? Who are you, dear sir? Some wizard of some kind? You can't be the keeper? God dang it. I'm so stuck with that Dino Charge thing. Come on. So, Paragon Supreme Torin. Oh yeah. So, they seek to fight, or they seek to find the Kyoryugers, those who shall battle against the evils that threaten humanity. Good for them. Anyways, so back with people going on and fighting some Zorimas. We have the rest of the Ranger team, and they're out randomly in elsewhere places, and they're facing off against these Vivexes. We would go on to see the Blue Ranger, and he's hupping, and we have Black Ranger. He's going on, and he's taking down some Vivexes, and the Green Ranger, he's going on and he's taking out some Zorimas, and then we see the Pink Ranger flipping in, and she's taking out some. She's taking out some Zorimas also, and she's not Shelby. She's not as delicious as Shelby. I'm sorry. That was creepy and weird, but still. I could go on and maybe not like Shelby, but god dang is Shelby attractive. That woman and her attractive. Anyways, pushing on here. So we would come to find out that weirdly the name of this team is to mean the Warriors of the Mighty Lizards. Not as attractive or as cool sounding as Dino Charge, right? Dinosaurs. Moving on. So we would have King that turns a Tora and it's like, well, hey, it seems that that kind of thing is right up my alley. And Torin's like, oh, you think so? Well, you are really truly brave, but you're probably gonna have to learn a thing or two. So here's where we go on. We have the rest of the Rangers, and we have like the Avengers movie pose where they're kind of all like next to one another, and we kind of circle them around as this like pan shot to see like, oh, this is a Black Ranger, Blue Ranger, Green Ranger, blah 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 blah, blah Rangers, uh, yellow, pink, and they're like all just turning around here. So we would have the king that is to go on, and he is to face off against his Zord, and it seems that the Zord is at first outsmarting him and is to go on and attack King in such a way where it knocks him down. And so King now has to figure out a strategy to beat his own Zord, which is weird. He's beating his Zord. So King goes on and he takes his revolver and he blasts into this mountain, and these rocks start falling down. And so the rocks are to go on and hit into his own Zord. And then King, I think, is to take one of the rocks and start riding on it. And all of a sudden, we would find out that the Zord goes on and opens its mouth and eats King. And Torin is like, oh, I guess King was eaten there. Well, all right, well, let's go on. Let's find a new Red Ranger. I guess he's dead now. Well, I guess we just have to write him off here. Oh, well. Hey, casting agent, you want to get another one in here? Who is the second choice for Red Ranger? And then the next thing we all of a sudden see is that the Zord falls over, the mouth opens, and the king comes out. And he's like, how about that, huh? Like, I have beaten my Zord, I have won. And so Torn is like, oh, wow. Like, all right, so that is way more impressive because I've never seen anybody topple this Zord the way you did. But it also seems too that you can't exactly go on and change into a ranger just yet, because your revolver, it seems, is to go on and still have that color look to it and doesn't have that yellow. So like you really still have to go on and still need to earn your stripes here, and you have to be worthy. So now back with the villains. So seemingly out of nowhere, we would have the appearance of who I would honestly like to call out to be Fury, but it seems that his actual Sentai name is Raging Knight Dewgold. So it's not Fury, it's Dewgold. We also get to see Poisandra, Wrench here, Curio, I would have to gotta look at the background here a little bit more. They go on and they explain who all these characters are, and they explain their Sentai alternative names and all their flavors and their whatever. So we have Fury or Dugald that ends up appearing here, and so Chaos goes on and turns to Dugald and says like, "Oh, and you are," and so he's like, "Well, I'm the D-Boss soldier of Fury, Dugald." And so Chaos is like, "Oh yeah, all right, yeah, like that makes all the sense. That seems perfect. Fury, it makes a lot of sense that you're here." So Dugald is going to get introduced to all the other comrades here to go on and get their names. So we would find out that Wrench here is a soldier of sorrow. Agaron, a Igaron. Poisandra is to go on to be the soldier of joy. Candelera? Candelabra. She's the soldier of joy. She's happy good times. So what a bright smile makes a beautiful face. So we have Curio, I believe it's Curio here, and Spy of Smiles, Lucky Crow, Lucky Crow. Yeah. She's a trusted lieutenant and the Spy of Smiles. Okay, sure, whatever. And so Chaos goes on and explains here that their duty is to exterminate the dominant species in the world, which is humanity. But the heart of their great ruler, Master D-Boss, is still frozen in slumber. Our first goal must to be thawing of his heart so that he may return. So back with Torn and Boss, or Torn and King here. So Torn is to go on and state that the D-Boss Legion are on the move once again, and that Chaos is gonna be shown here. And so Torrent says their first goal must be no, wait, I got a little confused here, a little bit of mess up here. So Torrent goes on and states how like they're to thwart the D Boss Legion. Those are the bad guys, and we have King that goes on and asks like, "Well, can I just take them down with a revolver?" And Torrent is like, "No, of course not." Slap. That's what he should have done. It's like, of course not, you dummy. Like, you're gonna need like a suit, you're gonna need armor, you're gonna need Zords, you're gonna need Megazord, you're gonna need a billion other things. You should have actually had a command center or museum in this case, but you don't have one, it seems, sadly enough. Why don't you have a museum show? What's wrong with you? So we go on to see other Rangers, and they have their Beast battery, which immediately I just want to call an Energem, but it's been a while since seeing Dino Charge, but also like are the Beast batteries, are they called Energems? That's what I'm assuming that they're called. It's been a while. When I think of like Energems, I think of the necklace thing that they have on them. That's what I think is to go on and just bizarrely just be their energy, but maybe the energy battery. It's been a while. It's been a while. Anyways, so moving on. So we see the Black Ranger, we see the Blue Ranger, we see the Green Ranger, we see the Pink Ranger, we see Torin. Because, of course, Torin is to go on and say here that the D bosses are to come to exterminate mankind, and that he's a little worried that King may not go on and become a true warrior, which is going to be ever so risky for him to go on into battle. But if anything, it seems that Torin and also the Zords are to kind of have a lot of investment to be into King, to think that he's going to go on and be the one that becomes the Red Ranger. So the Zord goes on to appear here, and so King is to say that this Zord, oddly enough, is to be run off of a battery, and so Torin is to kind of re-explain here that yeah, like there's beast batteries as well as also there's to be dino spirits, and so they kind of there is to be an exchange here that needs to kind of take place to have this Zord to be powered up the way it does. So that actually does actually make a lot of sense how the Rangers need to go on and face off against a number of villains and kind of get this charge up to eventually go on and do these certain bigger moves of things, because every bit of this Power Ranger stuff ends up having to be run off of some kind of charge of some kind of battery. So honestly, how they're going about this makes a lot of sense. So we have to have the King go on and mix it up with the rest of the Rangers. So King leaves here and he appears in another location. So we would come to find that this certain specific restaurant houses every single other Ranger, all located slammingly in one location. So we would have this Black Ranger. The Black Ranger is to go on here and be at this diner. And I'm trying to think of the name. Ian, I believe, is this guy's name. Ian is going on and he's at this diner and he's saying, "Juicy burger, juicy steak." I don't know why he's singing this song. It's very weird in my brain, but he's doing it. So he's going on and he's consistently singing this. I don't know why, but he is. And we would have Amy, a normal name. And then we have Noburharu, who I'm just going to be calling Undo. Undo here is to be a electrician, and he's going on and he's adjusting parts of this restaurant because the lighting is not perfect in there, or something's wrong in there that he's fixing. And so we have the Black Ranger again. He's like, burger, steak, and blah, blah, blah. He's singing this weird, goofy song. And then Amy comes in. It's like, well, hey, can I take your order? And so Ian turns to her. It's like, well, I'd like to take your smile. This guy is kind of a bit of a douche, if I'm to be honest here. This guy is to be kind of like, hey, I'm God's gift to women. Look how suave and attractive I am. So we have the rest of the Rangers all start to come in here, and they're getting upset with Ian because of how he has to go on and try to get with this girl. A lot of people are to like, hey, give it a rest, kind of lay off here. All of a sudden, King arrives, and King is like, well, hey man, stop what you're doing. And then Ian turns to King. It's like, oh, so are you going to be this girl's knight in shining armor? And King is like, dude, I'm no knight, I'm King, baby. And so we would of course go on and have the King with this like hot dog on his fork. So what ends up happening here is eventually the king is to go flying here, and eventually he ends up grabbing Undo. The two of them grab one another, they fall over, and King goes on and finds this Kyoryuger, this Sentai symbol in the ground, and he realizes that he can go on and make his way into the symbol, and this has him reappear on this other location that seemingly gets him to what I guess would be their equivalent to some kind of hideaway, because it has a huge uh, Sentai symbol behind him, as well as also on the ground. This is to be the equivalent of what looks like a command center of sorts, or some kind of location for them. So we would go on to have at the villainous base here. Oh man, I'm immediately need to have to remember all these characters' names, and immediately I just want to say the Dino Charge counterpart because it's freaking easier. Sorrow, Fury, Chaos, everybody, all the villains here, they go on and they meet up with the Debo Ice Age monster of this episode. And so they go on to explain that the D-Boss Ice Age was to have been the reason for the dinosaurs to have gone extinct. And so he here, hoping with his presence, will go on and deliver the same kind of effect with the Rangers in more modern time. So we have chaos that is going on and stating here that their battle shall begin anew. So we have King and we have Taro, and they're at their base of operations. We would see this little case here that shows all these kind of inner gems. They're all kind of just stacked here. There's a certain number of them. Maybe they're just kind of dormant, just laying for when they're gonna find the right ranger. Because there's like the gray one, there's a maroon one, there's all kinds of just interesting colors here. I don't know why there seems to be so many extra bits of ender gems here. Anyways, moving on. So we have Torin here that goes on to call this the spirit base, or the headquarters for the Rangers here. And so I'm going to be calling it the spirit base. It sounds so stupid. Why not call it something a lot more cool? Spirit base does not sound cool. And it states that this is a golden land that they assemble the dino spirits. So we have King that has this necklace. Looks at it, is like, oh, this necklace. So come to find out that this necklace is oddly glowing. And Torin and King starts to realize that this is a memento, that this is some kind of souvenir. So King would go on to explain that this was the last thing that his father had given him, and that the two of them had gone on to do some traveling together, and this was the last thing that King's father had given him before he had vanished. Oh no! Red Ranger's gonna have to find his dada? Well, of course he is, because that's what always happens. So, within also Dino Charge as well. Torin goes on to state that King and his dinosaur are bounded by fate, but he's not quite understanding of why his ranger color and everything like that won't accept him. And that at some point soon, the Zord will end up needing to go head into battle. So we now have Ice Age, or D-Boss Ice Age, that is going on and wreaking havoc upon the city. Going on and having its ice attack kind of go upon the town as Zoremas start to also combine into giant Zoremas. There are two of them that are to seemingly be destroying bits of the city here, as people are to kind of be going on and freaking out. Ah, Zoremas! Giant ones! Delicious Zoremas! How dare they go on and wreak havoc upon this town? How dare they? Boo! So here's where we go on and have the T-Rex dinosaur making its way and taking out some of the Zorimas and then also facing off against the giant Zorimas. Oddly enough, they ended up going on and talking about the whole beast battery thing, but it seems that this Zord is going to go on willy-nilly and just start facing off against these Zorimas without... That's something that just didn't quite make sense to me. The Zord can seemingly be operational and just go willy-nilly up. So what do we need a ranger for? Moving on. So we have Ice Age that is looking on of like a Voltosaurus. A lone dinosaur stands no chance against me. So King is to go on and be talking to Torin still again. And it's to mention about how the Zord has gone on to start to fight here. And without its beast battery, it's powerless against its villainous counterpart. And so here is where King is to go on and realize that he needs to leave here. And it's time for him to try to go on and do his best to face off against the Zorimas and Ice Age. So Torin is to go on and be like, well, hey, man, like, you're looking a little rough, so I'll go on and I'll give you this vest, and it'll look all neat and cool, and I'll throw this at you, you'll catch it, and then you'll wear it. So, because here's something cool, folks. We have a Red Ranger who's not wearing red already. That, I think, was the coolest thing. That's the thing that I love about Power Rangers, when a character isn't wearing their color-connected clothing. That, I think, is a way better thing than going on and having the Rangers wear their colors already in the show. I get annoyed by that. Because I'm a purist or whatever, where it's like, I don't think that the Rangers should be wearing their certain perspective clothes until they get the powers of Power Ranger. Then they can wear all the reds and the blues and the greens all they freaking want to. But let's go on here. So King appears in front of all the Zorimas, and we then cut to like the side, and we see that King Zord is frozen because Ice Age had frozen his said Zord while he was away. So Ice Age is going on and looking at King. It's like, a human? Are you insane, dear sir, little man, you? Like, and so King is like, no, I'm Super Saiyan. I'm going to show you guys how tough I am and how tough humans can be. So King goes on. He starts taking out some of the Zormas with his revolver. So while it seems that King is doing his best efforts to take out a lot of the Zoromas here, Ice Age goes on and does his blast attack. Zord gets into the way of this blast attack so that way King can be protected here. And then King is looking at his Zord, is like, oh, hey, yeah, like I guess you really do like me. I guess you really do care. Like, oh, like what a nice guy you are, Zord. So here's where finally, after King has gone on to finally be worthy by his Zord for his Zord to protect him, that's when his Revolver is to change and is to glow yellow. And so now King realizes that he can go on and be able to use his beast batteries and be able to then morph. And so he does. Kyoryuger, change, fire. So we in this iteration of this morphing, the Red Ranger goes on and does this little shuffle dance thing. And in Dino Charge, they don't do this weird shuffle dance thing. They just kind of do this spin and like, unleash the power! And like that's like the cusp of what they end up doing. So it's very much briefer. Brendan was to go on and say that Yoshi was to go on and know the Sentai Morpher. And they're like, "Are we seriously gonna have to do that dance?" And come to find out, no, they didn't have to. They just made it a lot simpler in Dino Charge. So we have Torin that tells the Red Ranger, "Go forth, fanged hero, do it, do your thing." Unlike Donkey Kong and so whatever. So we really have to consistently say like the Chompa Chompa thing. I don't know why. We also say the Zord's name. So both Red Ranger and its Zord, it seems, are like the Zord is no longer frozen, and like the two of them are going to go on and start facing off against both Zorimaz and Ice Age here. So as the Red Ranger faces off against all these Zorimaz, we would finally go on and get to the point to after all the Zord battle and the Red Ranger finally we would go on to get the rest of the Rangers that appear after seemingly so long in this episode. And they blast all the Zorimaz, and then they appear, and they're like, "Whoa, we have a Red Ranger now? Okay, all right, cool." Like so, and so they realize that they're a real team now, and the Red Ranger will also say that he's alone, as if he knew that there was going to be a team with him. Anyways, so back with D Gold here, he's to go on and say that he's furious, and they realize that there are to be, of course, 5 Rangers now. So the rest of the Rangers realize that the Red Ranger is going to be their seemingly final member, but there's probably going to be a 6th member. So they all go on, and they all are there to start to call upon their Zords. Oh, no, wait. They call upon who they are. My bad. They go on and they have to say that the red, black, blue, green, pink. Oh, so there's no yellow? No yellow. Alright, whatever. So I guess gold can make a whatever. Anyways, so I didn't realize that. Does Dino Charge not have a yellow? I'm so confused. But anyways, there's 5 of them. So, well, I guess green kind of makes up for there being a lack of whatever. Moving on. So, because there's a black and a green. So, yeah, I guess. Trying to think here. If there's any yellow, let me know in the comments below. Dino Charge doesn't have yellow. So weird. I'm so just about that. Anyways, so I'm so used to there being a yellow on a team. But again, there's gold, so I guess that's yellow enough. Anyways, pushing on. So they end up saying who they are, so they end up battling out here. So the Rangers all go on and they get out their certain weapons of choice to use here, where we have like the Pink Ranger, she ends up using her cannon. Some of them use their revolvers to take. So I'm really getting lost in the weeds here because I'm just like, what the heck's going on? There's just so much battling that's going on here, and we have the Champa Champas that are still going on. So we would go on to have the Red Ranger that goes into his Zord, and they do this like really big, this really big attack here that has him come flying out of the Zord that hits the monster here, and that what's ending up to take the monster out. We don't go on, and we don't have a Megazord being called. Like there isn't any escalation of things. It's to just be definitive of this attack. So shortly after the Ice Age characters be wiped out so easily, shortly thereafter that the rest of the group re-meets up together. And here's where they start to go on and they talk about their secret identities, about how they should not go on and not kind of sure who they really are because they should probably keep their private lights private. And immediately King just demorphs and says who he is, his nickname, and that they should all call him King. It's like, we're definitely not doing that. And he's just like, well, okay then, well, it's nice to meet you guys. And then he leaves. Torin goes on to say, it's like, well, like this long-awaited thing has now become a reality, and the Sentai Rangers are now born, so that kind of gives us to need to push on to the last Dekarangers episode. Oh my god, 2.5 hours. Good grief. Let me pause here. Five episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers took about the same or less time. Oh my god. Whew! Honestly, like, doing these specific reviews take a lot out of me. And also, that is to be the reason why I hesitate about doing them again. Just because it's like, man, if I kind of have to do them more regularly, like, I'm already going on and doing a lot of kind of stuff off camera, but then, like, when I'm going on and doing these, it's just like, oh my god, I have to do, like, so much research. I have to go on and try to say everything the right way. I have to figure out if, like, I'm saying all this right, and then also I say crane instead of firebird, or when I finally go on and just be like, dude, I don't want to do all of this and explain all of it all over, and also there's a lot of stuff where I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm saying, and I'm just trying to figure out a way to transition from beat and episode to episode. Okay, let's get to a point here. So we now have the Dekaranger episode. So we have the SPD Ranger, and he is in his, I think, Pat Striker is what they say. They have like this thing that just says Pat Striker on it, so I'm gonna go by that. So he is going on and he is racing next to a monster that I am to call Don Moiheda. Don Moiheda. It couldn't just be Praxis. Couldn't just be Praxis. It's Don Moiheda. So Don Moiheda is going on and he's in this fan crusher vehicle, and the two of them are chasing down this planet called Planet Chenbine. Chenbine? And eventually what ends up happening is the two of them, they're going down this road, and the Red Ranger is calling for the courts to try and get a ruling of deleting Danboy Heina. And it seems when he can finally go on and try to get this monster stopped, we are forcing now the Red Ranger to be crashing into this church where this is to have this cat-like wedding that is going on here. And the cat alien creatures here are to go on and actually to be called God, where is it? Chen Benarian. Chen Benarian. There seems to be a character called Chen Benarian Jin that seems to be one of these things. So the Chen Benarians are having this wedding, and it ends up getting erupted by the Red Ranger with his striker barreling in, crushing a bit of this wedding here. So we have the Red Ranger saying that he's a rookie here, and he can't let this monster go, even though he is a rookie and he's ill-experienced. So we would go on to have the Red Ranger, who eventually figure out a way to get his man. But then again, he'll also go on to run out of road. And so he has to kind of use these stopper things just in time before this bridge stops. So Ben goes on and he demorphs here, and he looks at his necklace. It's like, all right, like we did it. So all of a sudden there's kind of this quick flashback of something, and so on this kind of screen in front of Ban, we see Ban's superior, who is a guy who goes by the name of Porupo. Porupo goes on to talk to Ban and is to say, it's like, you know what? I would have liked to have fired you, but it seems that instead we're going to just transfer you to Earth, because it seems that the Deca squad, they need you there. So Ban goes on, and I think he is to go on and probably be upset about him needing to be transferred to Earth. But then again, he also screams the word yes, and then he bashes his head and he's like, ouch. So I'm just like, okay, is he upset about going to Earth? Is he not upset? It's its homeworld. So anyways, we would then go on to make our way to Earth here. Earth is to seem to be involved in a crisis here. we would come to find that there is to seemingly be a monster that is to go on and be called the Barunsu. But they end up giving it a nickname within this episode, and so they end up calling it like some alternative name. So the Barunsu is to seemingly be having this bus over its head, and it's kind of rocking it back and forth. And so this detective specifically comes in, and I know that this detective has this long-winded name and whatever. I'm going to go on and just call him Detective Z here because it's freaking easier. So this detective comes out. He's looking at this monster holding this taxi. So the detective goes on and says, man, this is a strange criminal. And they realize that it's an alienizer. And so we just have the detective that turns to one of the officers and says, hey, call the Dekarangers. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do anything anyways, so just call the Rangers. F it. Like, there's nothing we're going to be able to do. So we have the Pink Ranger's vehicle come in, and it's the Pat Signer. And so it's going on, and it's telling everybody to just kind of like, hey, get all your cars in a neat, orderly fashion to just kind of park here. So that way, all these other Zords can start to make its way through because they're going to go on and they're going to try and stop this monster, the Garosu, or the Barusu, whatever the green monster is. So Detective Z goes on and looks. He's like, oh, well, the Rangers are here. Good for them. So we would have the Rangers and they get all out of their Zords. And feasibly, I didn't go on and really, like, think to know the names of all these Zords because they aren't really here for that long. As well as also, they say the names of all of them, and I'm to just go on and just throw my hands up and just be like, I just want to get this done as quickly as humanly possible. So, if I'm not into detail about all these Zords and feasibly what all they are to do here, anyways, it is what it is for this review. I may not be as well versed and familiar with all the Zork names as well as obviously. But anyways, so yellow, blue, and green SPD Rangers here because I don't want to really say their names because they're also in costume anyways. They end up giving this monster a name called Libra Coon. So they end up saying that the nickname of this is super cool, and they get out their SP licenses to put a name upon the SP license because they want to go on and give this monster a verdict. And to also try to figure out what exactly he's saying. So they go on and they figure out that the monster is to say, stay back or I'll fire. And once they figure out themselves, like, dude, he already said that. So they're the rest of the Rangers are trying to figure out where exactly the Pink Ranger is, Umiko. So Umiko goes on and she's on the bus and she's telling them that, hey, yeah, guys, I'm on the bus. Yeah, I was trying to get to the action here and here's where I am. So the Pink Ranger is to be unmorphed in the bus here. And they're like, wow, like, you must get some nice view. And the Pink Ranger says, hey, it's like, well, yeah, I was running errands and now I'm stuck here. So we would finally go on and have the monster, the Libra Coon, that goes on and does this blast. And so it seems that the monster is to want to have these people prepare some kind of ship or some kind of rocket for him to get off this planet. And it's like, well, yeah, like that sounds easy for maybe him to say, but it's not easy for them to figure out. So Umiko is going on to tell everybody in the bus that they should just start singing. Okay? So they all eventually are to look at her like, no, it's not the time to sing. And Umiko is just like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, we need to sing now. So she starts singing. And so the rest of the Rangers are going on with their SB licenses and they're putting this monster into their crime file and that they've processed him. And now they figured out what their next attacks are to rush, attack, and capture. So it's like, all right, like we know what's going on here, so let's move. So Umiko is to tell the rest of the passengers to get to the back of the bus for them to kind of brace for eventually what could be happening next year. So we have the Pink Ranger. She goes on and she morphs. She goes into emergency Dekaranger instead of SPD emergency. It's so annoying to me. It really is. It's a rhyming thing. It sounds better. But again, people could say, "Oh no, emergency Dekaranger just sounds better," because they may have gotten just so used to it because they have gone on to watch this and not watch the Power Rangers SPD, so they like what they like, and that's perfectly okay. So the Rangers all get in their Zords and they say that this monster is nothing. Let's arrest him already. So what happens here is we'll come to find that the bus quickly disappears and the Libra Hoon is to seemingly be taken care of. It's like, wait a minute, like, how did all that happen? So we end up having to be forced to get some kind of replay here. So what ended up happening is that the Yellow Ranger had used their lights to kind of distract the monster into its eyes. While we had gone on to have the Green Ranger and his Zord use its signal cannon and cat rope and go on to grab Libra Hoon and wrap him up here, while the Blue Ranger and his kind of much more kind of almost like helicopter Zord or kind of, yeah, I want to say like a helicopter Zord. He comes in and he has this magnet wire attached to the bus and hauls it away. So we don't really have the Pink Ranger that goes on and does much here, but still. Like the one thing that she does actually do is she gets her D shot out and she just kind of fires, so that way the monster will go on and kind of be flying up into the air at a certain point. That's the only thing that she really goes on and does here. Moving on, the Pink Ranger goes on to kind of comfort some of the people here, and then she leaves. She goes into her Zord. And the Rangers go on to say that this case is now complete. And Detective Z is like, all right, they did it. So The next thing we see is a character with a leathery coat and sunglasses. I believe that this character is maybe Emperor Grum, but it could just be a Crybot, or it could just be uh, a blue-headed Crybot, or it could just be a Batsuroids, or it could be an Adoroids, which will eventually be Crybot and blue-headed Crybot. But anyways, so the Rangers and their Zords make their way back to the Deka base. Here's where we go on and we showcase who the Rangers are, and we get all these stats and everything like that. This kind of seems similar to the Power Rangers in Space Morph, where when they do the whole "Let's rock it," and then they have all this kind of like stuff that is just kind of spinning around and all these details and whatever. Kind of seems similar to that in a way. But so we have the Rangers meeting up with Kruger, and he's Anubis Kruger in this thing. So oddly, Anubis Kruger has to go on and take off these sunglasses. He's inside sunglasses. I'm so confused by that. Also, we have the mechanic, we have the swan, the cat woman, and it seems like her too. She used to have to need to wear sunglasses. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe the whole aliens thing. Maybe they all need to wear sunglasses. Swan Shiratori Deka Swan. That's to be the mechanic character. So Kruger is to go on and explain to the Rangers here. It's like, well, hey guys, yeah, you just wrapped up one case, but it seems that we were forced to go right into another one. So Kruger goes on and sets everybody down and starts to like explain that they're going into another case, but Kruger then realizes that the Pink Ranger isn't there. So I was like, okay, where's Umiko? Umiko goes on to be in a tub. She's having a rubber duckies and she's having a good old time. And so Anubis Kruger is calling the Pink Ranger, like, you need to be in this meeting. Obviously. So Umiko is to go on and eventually make her way there as Kruger goes on to explain that it seems that there is to be this interesting item, this mysterious object that was to be found in the monster's stomach. Come to find out, there is to be somebody who is to want this item, a villain who is to feasibly had some dialogue with this monster, and the two of them had talked about how this person had only wanted the item from this guy's stomach, and he didn't care about the monster. All he cared about was this item, and that's it. So Kruger is to go on and tell his team here that they're going to have to go on and figure out this mystery of why somebody wants this item. And so feasibly, that's what they're going to have to go on in this investigation to try and question people around town to figure out this mystery. So the Rangers go on and they leave here. And we have the mysterious man with the sunglasses and leather jacket. And he takes this blaster out and he starts firing upon these police officers, taking them down. Eventually, the police officers will go on and find this man and destroy him, and they'll come to find out that he's a mecha human, that he is to be seemingly a crybot of some kind. So, we have Anubis, we have a Kruger, and he makes his way to Deka Swan. Kruger goes on to state to her that he's kind of worried about what's to kind of go on right now. The two of them have this heart to heart, and Deka Swan is like, oh, so is that the reason why you were to go on and try to get a Red Ranger right now? Because you're kind of worried about what's kind of go on and gonna go on next? And Kruger's like, yeah, I am kind of worried. So that's why I did ask for more reinforcements. So the next thing we see is Ban here. Ban is trying to make his way to Earth. Here's where Ban goes on and say, yeah, you guys are going to clap for me, you're going to cheer me, dot, 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 dot. So Ban tries to go on and make his way to Earth via driving his striker, and he notices he can't get into Earth because there's some barrier there that forces him to not be able to get anywhere further into Earth. Ban is a little frustrated. It's like, wait a minute, like, shouldn't you guys have known I'm coming? Like, why is this such a struggle? So the next thing we see is the Rangers. I believe this is both green. Yeah, this is green and pink here. And they are questioning some guy. And I'm like, so wait a minute. Shouldn't there be aliens in this thing? Man, when looking at SPD, there are so many aliens on planet Earth. Like, why doesn't this Sentai also have aliens in it? We would also have them write off that aliens are to try as best as they can to look like humans, and so we have to assume that aliens are trying to disguise themselves into more human forms instead of going on and looking like aliens the way they do. Like, they'll show some examples here of aliens trying to hide in disguise. But anyway, so the Green and Pink Ranger are trying to question this guy, trying to get answers here. And by the time that they go on to get anything, we have a Crybot that comes in and blasts this guy and kills him. And the guy ends up turning into this this kind of lizard or greenish-like creature, and then he dies. We have the Green and Pink Rangers that are going on and chasing off after this cloaked man that we'll find out is a Crybot. So we have the Pink Ranger, and she is calling Anubis. And so, oddly enough, in this dialogue here, Anubis is answering the Pink Ranger, but we don't exactly know what's going on in the dialogue between the two of them, because not everything is to be said. But so Anubis is like, okay, I got it, okay, all right. So Anubis is to call both Yellow and Blue Ranger, and these Rangers are to not be morphed right now. They're all in their certain costumes. I just could not be bothered to say who all these people were. It's easier just to say their colors instead of their names at this point. And also, besides Ban, I'm honestly just trying to avoid as much as possible to have to say who all these names are. As you can kind of see throughout this entire thing, I'm trying to avoid that anyways. Not because I'm to try to be lazy. I don't want to have to look all this up. I don't have to look up all these because I don't know who these people are because I'm not really aware of them. Also, A lot of these names are hard to pronounce. I'm almost to the end here. I'm almost to the stretch here. And plus, also, once these characters morph, I'm going to be calling them by their Power Ranger names, anyways. Plus, with there just being a Crybot here and they're fighting off against it, it's a lot easier just to kind of let's skip around here. So the blue and yellow ranger to go on and be called to Anubis, so they go into action. So pink and green are chasing off the Crybot here, and they end up cornering him. Blue, yellow, pink, and green, they all get to these four corners, and so the Crybot is to now go on and be thought that, like, okay, there's nowhere for him to go. All of a sudden, the Crybot goes flying up into the air into this case of stairs, and then they're just like, well, like, he must be some kind of mecha human of some kind, Crybot. So we have the Blue Ranger that takes out his blaster, his SP shooter, or possibly his Magnum. I know eventually we do have the two gun combination where it has the two Magnums and they combine into the hybrid Magnum. That happens later with the Red Ranger. But I think this might just be the SP shooter. So the Blue Ranger whips out his shooter and blasts at the Crybot, or the mecha human. And the Rangers go on to... Yeah, these are the SP shooters. They're so small, yeah, they're the SP shooters. So the Rangers try to figure out where this Crybot had landed, and when they get there, the cloak is to be revealed off this person, and it's to be revealed as the blue-headed Crybot. And so the Rangers all thrust their guns, their SP shooters, in front of the blue-headed Crybot. And we have the Crybot that says, I'll defeat you guys. So Umiko is to go on and tell the rest of the Rangers that they need the Pink Ranger. She goes on and tells them that they should probably morph at this time. Consistently, the Blue Ranger is to not want to be taking orders from anybody, plus also with kind of... For SPD, we would come to find that the Blue Ranger is to kind of be the highest rank when there isn't a Red Ranger. So, like, the Blue Ranger is to go on and I think to turn to everybody just like, dude, I'm not taking orders from anybody. Like, I'm the dude giving orders because there's no Red Ranger. So they call it emergency Dekarangers. They all morph here. And so now they have to go on and explain how the Rangers morph here, because the SP licenses will go on and send some signal to the Deca base for there to be some energy to be sent for them to be able to morph. So they go on and explain this thing, the transition of it all, and then they morph. So the Rangers face off against this blue-headed Crybot. And at certain points, we would go on to see these Rangers that are whipping out other weapons besides their shooters. We would go on to see the Blue Ranger is to go on and take out his... trying to see where it is here. Crap. His D-stick? I think that's what it's called. It ultimately looks like a stick or a baton here. So the Rangers are to try to go on and take out this Crybot, and eventually they'll come up with a plan that they can't destroy this monster. They can't delete it or whatever. That they realize that they have to go on and they have to arrest this Crybot. I know I'm saying Crybot instead of its alternative name of Batsuroid, but blue-headed Crybot is a lot easier in my brain. It really is. So they're saying that they need to arrest him, and that's their plan. So that way, this Crybot will cough up its scheme. And so, what happens here is the blue-headed Crybot goes on and has this, what looks like a grenade at first, but when he throws it, we would come to find that he is to bring out the aneroids, the other actual original Crybots. So the Rangers further and further start to realize that they're becoming outnumbered here. And here is where Ban comes in with his striker and goes on to grab with one of his arms of his striker to grab this blue-headed Crybot. So Ban gets out of his vehicle to face off against this blue-headed Crybot. And we have Ban who's going on to say, it's like, all right, I'm going in, like, I'm gonna morph, I'm gonna do that. And so we have the rest of the Rangers all looking at the red one, and they're like, should he be here? Like this guy is very abrupt. We have the Blue Ranger that's going on and saying, hey, don't butt in. There's no place for you here. So the Red Ranger calls for emergency Dekaranger. He morphs. So the Red Ranger goes on and he morphs here, and the problem is that the Red Ranger goes on and he goes too far. Because for him, like, he deletes first, asks questions never. So the Red Ranger goes on and takes out some of the aneroids as he fights them, and then goes on and takes out his magnums and starts blasting. And so the rest of the Rangers are just kind of looking on and they're critiquing him. And so they're like, well, hey, he's skilled, but like he probably should have tried to catch him already. He's a showboat, so what? So the Red Ranger goes on to face off against Blue Crybot and other Crybots. And we had this one really interesting action scene where the Red Ranger is just like falling from and he's firing away while falling. He's like two gun firing, falling, and like it's a really interesting bit of scene here, but also I'm just like, this just looks weird as heck. Like the Red Ranger is just like and yeah. So it's all left to just the Red Ranger and the Battleroid as they fight. And further, the rest of the Rangers are realizing that the Red Ranger is going to just destroy this Battleroid. So like, no, like he can't do that. And some of the other Rangers are like, well, hey, just calm down. Like maybe we're kind of getting suspicious that this guy's going to take it out, and maybe he'll go on and he'll arrest it. And also they're just like, well, yeah, as long as he's going to capture this thing, like, then we'll be fine. So here's where the Red Ranger combines his two magnums together and realize that, yeah, this thing is going to go bye-bye. So the Red Ranger does his D power charge and does this blast, and the Battleroid gets hit by this thing and it explodes, and the Red Ranger just turns around as the explosion happens and he's like, I did it, yeah, I beat this thing. And the Blue Ranger's like, no. So the Blue Ranger comes into the Red Ranger and is so upset with him and like, did you know what you just did? And the Blue Ranger goes on and punches the red one. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I haven't seen nearly enough violence in these 3 episodes because honestly, I'd seen other Super Sentai pilots and I'm seeing like a person put their foot over someone's like neck and all kinds of other more vicious, like people getting killed like things. And like, this is the only thing where I'm seeing a ranger punch another one. I'm like, yeah, like, let's see more of that. So the Blue and Red Ranger are fighting, and the Red Ranger is oblivious. It's like, what the heck is going on? Like, I helped you guys out. But the Red Ranger has no idea what's going on. So the Green Ranger ends up finding out that out of all those pieces that had fallen from the Battleroid, that the Battleroid was getting orders from somewhere else. And the next thing we see is the Metropolitan Police headquarters, and we see one of the mecha humans that had gotten taken out by the police officers. That thing is not to go on and can be completely dead. That it reawakens and it appears as like, aha. So we would come to find out that within the Deca base, that of course the mecha human had gone on to take down the barrier so we could have some mega drills make their way onto planet Earth. So all of a sudden these mecha drills are to go on and go onto these bridges and all these places, these ships that are to go on and make their way here. So and here's where we start to go on and transition into the ending of this, where we're to realize, okay, like so next week on Power Rangers, we're gonna have the Dekarangers go on and face off against the Mega Drills, try to take down this crisis, and I need to get the heck out of here because it's already 3.5 seemingly hours or 3 hours and change. God dang it! I knew that this was gonna occur, but also I'm just like, man, I didn't want to take this long, and then also I was to try as best I can to get under. I would hope 2 hours, but I was like, this is not going to happen. Let me know in the comments below what you felt about these certain pilots. If you were to check them out, let me know in the comments below anything that you like in the future to talk about Power Rangers with. I could just go on and at some point uh, talk about generically about Power Rangers and this and that instead of going on and doing all these episodes. That could be refreshing. That could be different. That could be interesting to do something like I think the character thing that I went on and did, like the listing off of character stuff for Power Rangers, I think was really interesting. I'm kind of tempted to at some point maybe redo that list because maybe I can do both Power Rangers and Sentai at this point. Maybe there's certain Sentai characters that I like over Power Rangers. Who knows? Maybe I can go on and just do a villain list, a monster list, blah blah blah. Blah, who knows? Maybe I could go on and do any number of things. There it could be endless. Besides having to do episode to episode reviews, but I know that could also be. I wouldn't say bread and butter because I'm not really good at it, but it, that seems to be the one thing that a lot of people are kind of just interested in. there is also like some temptation in me to at some point realizing that it's going to take forever to do this series review. There are honestly certain bits of Power Rangers that I want to see that it's going to take me a while to get to. And I really am itching to just be like, well, hey, what if I went on and I covered this certain story arc or I covered this, but it's just like, no, I've really cemented that I'm going to do this series review thing. And to kind of skip around now, it's going to really just get me even lazier to do this series review. So, with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here because this video is long enough. So, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.